Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Kashif Abdullah. It is Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, and I am talking to you today again about the coronavirus. And I thought at the very end, I talked to you also about PowerPoint, a presentation regarding I think it's dealing with fatigue, which we may be experiencing with this quarantine and what have you. So, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'll just put it right here. Hello, everybody. Uh, there we go. So, yeah, if you have any questions, you can, it doesn't matter. Even about, you don't have to be just strictly about coronavirus, it could be anything. Um, so, let me see if there is any questions I have here. I don't know. Well, looks like that's just going on. Okay, so in regards to coronavirus, where are we today in the world? Oh, let me switch screens. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. So, and let me refresh that screen. So if we look, there is now unfortunately 1.9 million people who have been confirmed infected with this virus. And there has been now 124,000 deaths, unfortunately, due to this virus, which is so many. It's too many. If we look at the daily number of cases, we can see that the world is beginning to have a plateau and is now trending down slowly in the total number of daily cases, of daily new cases. I'll say that. If we go to Spain, we will notice that there is a significant fall. And the U.S. is, of course, has the same number as about the same number as Italy, Spain, and France together, and maybe one day Germany at this point, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. The U.S. can have all four of these countries' numbers. Spain is dropping significantly. The U.S. is also beginning to fall, so that's good. At almost 600,000 cases, at 25,000 deaths, it is beginning to fall. Hopefully, of the number of deaths, I think the U.S. is now number one. Unfortunately, I don't think. Yeah, I think that they are. The U.S. now is number one in the total number of deaths in the world, in a country of 25,000 deaths now, unfortunately, due to this virus. If we look at, so Spain, Italy is also falling in the number of cases, new cases. France is also falling. Germany has fallen significantly as well. The United Kingdom is beginning to fall. China is, well, Iran, that's pretty, it is falling, but I'm not sure how well to take that number. Turkey is also falling, and the Belgians are beginning to fall, Netherlands, and the Canadians are also, well, about status. They're sort of falling, not really, but sort of plateauing. The Swiss are falling significantly. The Brazilians, they're also falling. It's good. And the Russians, unfortunately, I think it's out of control in Russia, and I don't know what's happening in Russia really. Portugal also falling. Austria is falling significantly. Israel is also sort of there. And if we look at South Korea, our number one country to look at, they're literally, it looks like 25, the last number on the, yesterday, 25 new cases, and that's it, 25. That's really, really good. And they only have 222 deaths, unfortunately. But compared to the U.S. is, yes, and I know the U.S. has way more population, but still, 25,000, they're 200. That's very significantly lower. So if we can look at the U.S. map, this one shows what's happened in the U.S. Basically, it says here that really it is the Northeast that is affected the most. They have the most number of confirmed, and they have the most number of deaths, unfortunately, too. New York and Nassau. Wayne, I believe, is in Detroit, or sorry, Michigan, near Detroit. And where is California, since I'm from this area? Oakland, I believe that's Oakland, California. No, actually, I was wrong. That's not Oakland, California. That's Oakland, Michigan. Wow. Holy smokes. What about, where's California? That's weird. Oh, there they are. Los Angeles. So Los Angeles has the most number of deaths at 322 deaths. So they have the most number, yes, of the confirmed cases in just that vicinity of Los Angeles. They have, what is their population? That little area is 10 million. And they're not, that's not too bad actually for a population that size, having that number of confirmed cases and unfortunately deaths, and the fatality rate is still 3%. So I wanted to show you actually another thing recently that came to my attention. I was talking to a patient, and he and I were talking just today about about COVID-19 and social distancing, and I was speaking to him about curves in regards to. I was speaking to him about curves in regards to the pandemic and the 1918 pandemic as well. So that's what I want to talk to you about a little bit on. But I found this thing. There was apparently social distancing happening also in 1918 that I was just now made aware of. And the 2019 pandemic showed that there was, in Philadelphia, there was no social distancing. Then in St. Louis, they actually did social distancing. So it says here that at first, in the first reported case in Philadelphia, authorities didn't want to do anything. They just downplayed it, and they allowed public gatherings, and the infection went insane. There was a large number of deaths in Philadelphia, and basically the entire Philadelphia population fell ill, and many people passed away. But in St. Louis, that was not the case. In St. Louis, there was they actually did social distancing, and they tried to essentially prevent didn't allow people to have public gatherings. And you can see that their curve flattens much more significantly than Philadelphia. The big spike here is not as big, and even when they did, it looks like here maybe they may have relaxed social distancing right here. There was a slight increase, but then it fell down. Philadelphia had a much larger death rate, and it infected people way quicker. And the most important thing was the fatality rate was so much lower, or mortality rate was so much lower than Philadelphia's. So social distance, and I was mentioning to this patient, that it's very important that we try to prevent basically what happened before. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Oh, there's various patients calling. Oh, I should put that. I'm not sure what's doing that. But let's see. But yeah, it's not been easy these days, and social distancing, I would say, does work. We need to continue to do the social distancing. We need to prevent the number of deaths that have been occurring. And let's see if there's any questions here. No questions thus far. But I thank you for the like. If anyone like I said, has any questions, feel free to ask. And they don't have to be COVID-19 questions. It could be something else. And speaking about that, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and show you. I was going to talk to you also about dealing with fatigue. So, fatigue is something that many people may be experiencing with this COVID-19 situation, and maybe it's due to something other than just being quarantined or maybe what have you. But in general, fatigue, like 1 in 5 people who come to the doctor will feel fatigued. Men usually say they feel tired, whereas women will more often say that they're depressed or anxious. So the most common causes of fatigue are overexertion, deconditioning, a viral illness, upper respiratory tract infections, anemia, lung infections, medications, depression, and or cancer. So a lot of this can, some of these things are not that serious, meaning some of these things can be, not, I'm sorry, it's not that, they're not that serious, but some of these symptoms of fatigue can be dealt with just changes in the way we live. So one of the thing is, you might try to figure out what is the difference between fatigue and sleepiness. So sleepiness is usually wanting to sleep, and they're usually aroused by activity. Like, so if you just say, if you're sleepy and you go out and walk about, you'll usually wake up, and you feel better after a nap. Fatigue is not the same. Activity actually makes you more tired, and sleep doesn't help you. You still feel exhausted, and you can have also mental exhaustion. So sleepiness and fatigue sort of are similar in some regards, but if you go to sleep, you should feel better. If you're fatigued, you don't feel better with sleep. So that's one of the biggest things. So there can be secondary fatigue, meaning second fatigue due to disease or physiologic, or chronic. So secondary fatigue is again due to a medical condition that can last up to 1 to 6 months. Some people, like, I'll give a classic fatigue symptoms is sometimes people have fatigued because of like they have diabetes, God forbid, or they have anemia. The women who they've had a heavy bleed and they can feel fatigued, or some people don't eat enough iron in their diet. Maybe some people who are vegetarians, strict vegetarians, and don't incorporate enough nuts into their meal have a lack of iron in their meals and they feel fatigued. Physiologically, people can feel fatigued. Those are people with an imbalance in exercise or sleep or diet. So somebody who may be exercising way too much, right? Really wants to lose weight or something, is just exercising. They can just cause fatigue because they're just exercising too much. Or those who have been chronically sleep deprived. Now, yes, there's sleepiness, but there's also sleep deprivation. So maybe you have been working late night shifts all the time, and you've only been able to get 1 to 2 hours of sleep in the last couple of weeks to months. Those people will be chronically fatigued. But it can also be due to a diet. Again, I mentioned the issue of not having enough iron in your diet. It can just be sort of medical, of course. But again, none of these are really medical conditions. These are all imbalances. And chronic fatigue is usually fatigue that lasts longer than 6 months. So if the fatigue is going longer than 6 months, I would highly recommend you going to a physician to get this checked out. And secondary fatigue, which is due to medical conditions, can be due to a variety of issues. Offending medicines sometimes can be. So some people who are on a lot of blood pressure medicines, I can tell you from personal experience of patients coming in. Sometimes when I hear the list of medicines they're taking, I tell them, well, it's this blood pressure medicine or it's this medicine that's causing you fatigue. If we decrease or change it, maybe we can reverse the fatigue, and usually that is the case. Physiologic sometimes can be like parameters sometimes are incorrect. So those are like electrolyte imbalances can cause fatigue. Some people have like thyroid issues. They can cause fatigue, of course. Anemia, which is lack of blood, can cause fatigue. That's when there's certain values like under 10 grams per deciliter. That's just like the concentration of blood in your system. And women who have heavy bleeds, menstrual bleeds, can have these issues. And sometimes the best way of improving that is just through iron supplementations. Um, and usually, in order to do medical evaluations, okay, so patient, somebody's calling me, colleague of mine. Medical evaluations, sometimes it can be infections. We would have to do labs. We would have to do medical examination. Sometimes it can be due to infections. Labs that we would include are a CBC, that's a complete blood count, an ESR, that's basically sediment. That's basically an inflammatory marker to see if there's any inflammatory issues going on. A chemical, Chem 14, which is basically we're testing your liver and kidneys. Thyroid stimulating hormone, we're testing your thyroid. Urinary, oh, put that away as red. UA or pregnancy test. Sometimes women who are pregnant can feel fatigue too, so that's something else we have to check out for. For managing physiological fatigue, the best thing is just getting sleep and maintaining a good sleep hygiene. I spoke about this yesterday about sleep hygiene and insomnia. So if you want, you can circle back to yesterday's talk about insomnia and how to improve sleep hygiene. Sometimes if you have physiologic fatigue, meaning due to lack of sleep or exercise, let's see. Sorry. Sorry. Let's see. There's someone telling me there's difficulties to ask questions on YouTube. Oh, that's weird. I would have to change that somehow. I'll look into that they can't ask questions. Maybe if you're using just in case out there, if you're using a phone app, it might be hard as opposed to the computer. But I would have to look that up myself. I'll have to figure out the solution to that. But getting back to fatigue, short-term ways of improving fatigue. Sometimes just drinking coffee or having a quick 30-minute power nap can help. And some people can feel fatigue due to if they're like night shift workers. There are certain medications we can give to help alleviate that. This medicine can be as strong as like 600 milligrams of caffeine, modafinil. But this, you need to speak to a doctor about this one. But there's a lot of issues with fatigue, and I understand how hard fatigue can be. But if you have any other questions about fatigue or insomnia, which I spoke about before, you can also direct message me, I believe, on YouTube. And I can answer your questions that way. And if not, I will look into the question. There was, like I said, the question issue, people not being able to ask questions. I will look into that. I'm not sure why that may be the case. Let's see, is this it? Let's see, participants, no. I'm just looking here to see if there's any way of improving the chat. Or me playing with the chat. I don't know. No, it doesn't really say. Anyway, I don't know if anyone can see my comments, but I can play with this later on to try to fix those things, asking comments. But I know after the video, just to let you know, let's just go here for a second. I know after the video, if you wish, you can ask questions. Like you can put questions onto the comment section. So after the video is done and you still want questions asked, you can put them on the comment section and I should be able to see them. And I can answer questions that way as well. So yeah, it's been hard these days. Lots and lots of people are trying to figure out when can we go back to work and when can life go resume to normal. And likely that's going to only happen when we have a vaccine. That's the only time it's going to happen. When there is a vaccine to this problem, that's when likely things will all come back to normal. Even if there is a dip in the number of cases and everything, which I would assume would happen by June, I still think that people are going to be very weary without the vaccine. And it might take, I don't know, the full year, which is pretty crazy. That reduction in productivity has not been seen since 1918, and that was during a war. That was during World War One. But if there's any silver lining to this, I don't know. The Roaring Twenties was one of the most productive time points during that time after the World War One and after this after a pandemic in that scale in those days. But of course, the Great Depression hit. There's that. So this is very hard, and it's not easy. Um, People can, of course, if you have any problems outside of even medicine, you can ask me questions if it's feeling depressed or what have you. I'm here as best I can, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Again, thank you again for the views and seeing. And if you like this, you can share, subscribe to the video, what have you. And again, I'm here Mondays to Fridays. I'm not sure what this is all about. Close that. Mondays to Fridays, from 12:30 to 1, and I'm just here to help as many people I can. Thank you again. Bye bye.